southwestern United States, near Phoenix, Arizona, is a brooding, mysterious wilderness known as Superstition Mountain. This area has a violent, ruthless past, and is best known as the location of the famous Lost Dutchman gold mine. The secret of the Dutchman's gold is shrouded in all the mist of the mountain and haunted by the ghost of all who have gone before. They move in the vast, silent stillness of the evil superstition, beckoning others to follow. There is a curse on this gold, a curse that lingers over these mountains. Everyone who has searched for it, seen it, or touched it is marked for a horrible death. Yet the superstition continues to lure men and women to search for the Dutchman's gold. Their bleached bones and beheaded bodies are later found in the treacherous cliffs and canyons of the mountain. The Apache Indians considered this area sacred and the home of their gods. They placed the curse on all who searched for the yellow metal. To this day, the mine's location is still a mystery. Each year, the Don's Club of Arizona, a group of business and professional men devoted to the perpetuation of the lore and legend of the Southwest, stage their superstition trek into the mountain. The club was organized in the early 1930s and continues today as a non-profit civic organization serving the public by organizing exciting and exclusive travelcades to the romantic lands of the conquistadors.
The Dons began way back in 1931 when they were a group of men associated with the YMCA. And because of their work with the Y and their civic activities, they called themselves the Triangle Club. They were interested in the Southwest. Some of them were from here, some back east. They'd get in their automobiles and form a little caravan of cars with their families, going out each weekend into the desert, and they would narrate the story and the history that they had learned during the week. They left the YMCA, and they called themselves the Dons. There were several names chosen, the Vaqueros, the Phoenicians, and so forth, but the word Don, D-O-N, more properly pronounced in Spanish, Don, was the name chosen. Our wives, indispensable to us, are called Doñas, D-O-N-A, and without them, of course, we couldn't function as a Don's Club nearly as successfully as we do. Orrin Arnold was our first president of the Don's Club, and he was a writer and a historian. And he wrote about a Dutchman who supposedly had a very fabulous mine out here in the Superstition Mountains. His name was Jacob Waltz. It was syndicated coast to coast, and he told that on a certain day, the Dons of Arizona were going to go into the mountains and find the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. He thought that perhaps maybe 100 or so people would respond. Almost 1,000 people sent in letters, maps, copies of maps, and so forth, requesting that they could be used or go on this particular trek into the mountains. So on one Sunday in 1934, they started out and they searched for the mine. That was our first trek, and of course, since that time, it's grown in scope, stature, and every other way. And here we are in the heart of the superstitions on a glorious trek day, in front of the statue of old Jacob Waltz, perpetuating the basic tenets of our bylaws. The lore and the history and the traditions of the Southwest shall be forever preserved.
The first superstition trek was on Sunday, February 11th, 1934. A single 40-passenger bus was chartered and soon overflowed with guests. Those who did not get a seat on the bus were driven to the mountain by Don's members using their own cars. Stops were made in the distant cities of Tempe and Mesa for more guests, and the resulting caravan was escorted to the mountain by the Arizona Highway Patrol. That first trek established the format for all future treks, a day and evening devoted to the stories of the Lost Dutchman Mine and the legends of the Old West. Because there was no electricity, the first evening programs were illuminated by bonfire. With the cooperation of the U.S. Forest Service, a special use permit was obtained, allowing for the construction of a permanent base camp. The stone amphitheater was carved out of a sloping hillside, providing more comfortable seating for the guests and a better stage for the entertainers and for the performance of the evening's legend drama. As the development of base camp grew, so did the reputation and popularity of the Don's Club. In 1946, members of the club met at the White House with President Harry S. Truman. The president was made an honorary Don. Each year, new and improved displays and activities await guests and visitors. And all those years of development have made a very comfortable and enjoyable base camp for Trek. The exciting day at the Superstition Trek traditionally ends with the fireworks and the firefall. The spectacular firefall over the face of the mountain is the most remembered sight of Trek. And since the firefall at Yosemite National Park was discontinued several years ago, the Don's Club holds the distinction of being one of the last places in the United States where the flowing beauty of a firefall can still be seen.
Firefall originated at the old Don's Club base camp, which is over the hill this way. At Hole in the Rock, on Trek evening, a couple of guys would hike up and haul charcoal up on their backs and dump it into this hole in the rock. They would start the fire, and then about the close of Legend Drama, they would push the fire out with rakes over the side of the hill. The motor carrier that you see is designed to haul the charcoal up to the top of the hill up there on Firefall. Several years ago, a couple of us lazier Dons got together and built this contraption. It's a motor that's powered by a regular lawnmower engine, has a transmission on it with a dual wheel. We run the rope all the way up to the top of the hill, around a pulley up at the A-frame that you see up there, all the way back down, clamp it here, we put the basket on it. In the basket we put the bags of charcoal, which weigh 40 pounds apiece, about 3 bags per trip, and there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,800 pounds of charcoal that goes up the side of the hill. 3 guys at the top of the mountain unload the charcoal and stack it up against the edge of the ledge. At that point, they just accumulate the bags until the job is done. It takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5 to 5 hours to completely fill the bunker up there in preparation for Trek Day. We begin the fire at about 10 o'clock in the morning by pouring some Boy Scout starter fluid onto 10 bags of charcoal in the bottom of the bucket. Then every hour we add an additional 10 bags, and then by evening the charcoal is ready to dump around 9:30. The fireworks that you see are shot from tubes that are embedded in concrete at the top of the hill. They range in size from 3 inches in diameter to 10 inches in diameter. The bigger ones weigh about 44 pounds apiece, and they make a beautiful aerial burst, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 meters in diameter. And they are purchased from a local fireworks productions company. They are of Japanese manufacture and Chinese manufacture, and they range anywhere from $8 to $200 a piece in cost. And we've been doing it this way for about the last 15 years. A new innovation this year is the sombrero that you'll be seeing at the top of the hill. The sombrero is manufactured from prefabricated aluminum tubing with holes drilled in it. We put the flash cord through the aluminum tubing. When we light it, it glows in the shape of a sombrero, so you will see the traditional Don's Club emblem, the sombrero, at tonight's Firefall. And at this point, I'd like to say that the safety record is impeccable for Firefall. We've only had 1 minor incident and no major accidents. I have all 10 fingers. All my shooters have 10 fingers.
While the Firefall crew continues hauling the charcoal up the face of the mountain, rehearsals are beginning in the amphitheater for the cast and backstage crew of the Legend Drama.
You might give him another yell and tell him we've got to get him out here, because if he doesn't, then all of a sudden it's going to be 1 o'clock and we'll miss the whole massacre rehearsal. If you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it. Okay, there will be a shot fired, and then what you'll do is you'll struggle to your feet because you've been asleep. Struggle to your feet, you'll turn up, come around like this, and wait, and you two will engage the first Indians coming over. They'll come over the top like that, and then the other 2 miners here, 2 miners here, will be wiped out by the Indians that come down that gulch, down here.
The Legend Drama began in 1944 as a 2-hour production with over 50 actors. Over the years, the storyline was trimmed, and a skillful blending of talented Dons with professional actors created a rousing and romantic portrayal of the Peralta and Lost Dutchman gold mine. Trek morning starts early, very early. The quiet peacefulness of pre-dawn is violently shattered by the 6 a.m. alarm cannon. As the nerves settle back into place from the cannon's boom, the most sought-after and popular person in camp is the lonely man in the coffee shack. A hearty country breakfast of eggs, bacon, sausage, toast, biscuits, hash browns, pancakes, juice, and coffee provides time for an informal discussion of individual tasks and for a last-minute adjustment to costumes. Dust trails on the horizon indicate the approach of oncoming vehicles. And as the first busload of guests arrive at the front gate, the first long hike is already leaving base camp. The hike will travel 9 miles into the Superstition Wilderness and climb approximately 1/2 mile from the altitude at base camp. An experienced and informative Don leads the hike and offers a relaxed trailside commentary about the legendary landmarks along the way and of the famous and infamous who have traveled these trails before.
This area that you'll be going through on your long hike today is volcanic in nature. It's generally referred to as the Superstition Caldera. That's a word meaning bowl. It was formed 20 million or more years ago by a giant eruption, probably 20,000 or more times the intensity of the Mount St. Helens eruption. That eruption put about 1 cubic kilometer of material into the air. When the Superstition Caldera was formed, scientists estimate that approximately 10,000 cubic kilometers were erupted. It went up, fell down, and formed this great bowl, which is what we'll be going through today.
The trails of the Superstition contain many things, but one thing they do not contain is level ground.
Now that we're at the top of Cardiac Hill and everybody's had a chance to catch their breath, I'd like you to look over here to the east. The high peak is called Miner's Needle. That's named after a fellow who organized a mining party in about 1860 or 1862. At that time, it was the largest party that ever went out into the Superstitions to look for gold. About 260 people with all of their ancillary equipment gathered and came out here in this heat and looked for gold. I believe it was in the late spring or early summer, so it was good and warm. They stayed about 2 months, looked everywhere, and didn't find any gold whatsoever. After a lot of complaints and disgust and all of that, they all went back to Phoenix, including Mr. Miner. And the story has it that he was assisted out of town secretly at night with the lynch mob on his heels, and he got away. Just to the right of Miner's Needle and a little bit below it, you can see it out there, there's an area called Spanish Graveyard. In the 1930s, a fellow and his wife were riding horseback through this valley, and they discovered what appeared to be the remains of a Spanish scouting expedition. They found various pieces of armor, weapons, saddle, horse tack, and the like. And the indication is that it was actually a Spanish expedition that probably came through sometime in the late 1600s and met their end at the hands of the Apaches. You'll see some other miners meet their end at the hands of the Apaches tonight in our legend drama.
Cardiac Hill is the first hurdle in the long hike obstacle course. Really, however, this hill is misnamed. It is only a mild stroke. The Cardiac is for the ever higher hills yet to come.
As you look across Peralta Canyon, up at the top of Superstition Mountain, you'll see some stone monoliths. They pretty much go from one end of the mountain to the other. And there's an interesting legend that's associated with these, which has a lot of pretty interesting parallels with the Old Testament. What the Pima Indians believed was this. One of their gods, Sherwat-Maki, had a prophet whose name was Sulu. And Sherwat-Maki came to Sulu and he told him, take all of your people out of the valley, bring them up on top of this mountain and keep them there, because I am going to make it rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and I am going to flood the entire valley. And after the waters have receded, take the good ones back down to the valley and get back with your farming and your living. The bad ones I will keep on the top of the mountain with me, and they will all be turned to stone. That's why the stone people are here. Now, some have said that those are Arizona politicians, but we believe that it's the Indians.
There are many switchbacks along the trail with wide panoramic views of the rugged and inhospitable terrain. The switchbacks also allow you to see where you're going, as well as where you've been. Hikers snake along the trail as the boulders close in around them. and squeeze through the ever-narrow opening of the chimney. And use the thoughtfully provided rope to slowly ascend the steep face of Devil's Slide. Geronimo's Cave is a welcome rest stop and a well-known landmark, even if Geronimo never really slept there.
We're at Weaver's Needle Overlook, which is as close as we get to on the long hike trail today. We've come about 4.5 miles. The trip back to camp will now be downhill, so it'll be a lot less strenuous from what you've been through. The needle itself is referred to as a volcanic plug. It was formed as part of the eruption process when the Superstition caldera was formed, and is actually a solid mass of volcanic material which is weathered over the years to leave what you see basically as a monolith. Because of its prominence, this landmark is figured in virtually every map that's ever been created to try to describe where the location of the Lost Dutchman Mine is over the years. Pretty recently, there was a fight which happened out here, two parties out looking for gold. One group was led by a woman whose name was Celeste Jones. She believed that the gold was actually inside the needle, so she hired a mining engineer from the Colorado School of Mines who went up the side of the needle, got up on top, and with drills attempted to bore a hole all the way down the inside of the needle. No gold was found. The other group was led by a fellow whose name was Ed Piper, and in the late spring or early summer of 1953, these two groups got into a fight, and it wasn't over gold. It was over something that's a lot more precious in the desert at that time of year, water. One man was killed, one or two of them were wounded. Celeste Thomas disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to her, and Ed Piper died a short while later.
Lunch at the Weaver's Needle Overlook is a great time to catch one's breath and a good spot for group pictures. A turn left at the saddle near Weaver's Needle finds that the trail is all downhill from there. Descending along the Peralta Trail, other hikers can still be seen just arriving at Geronimo's Cave. Upon arrival at camp, the survivors of the long hike are presented with a special award for their stamina and endurance. These two survivors thought the hike was fun, but rough going in places. This survivor, however, thought it was
piece of cake.
Other less strenuous hikes are available during the day. The 2-hour medium hike travels through part of Peralta Canyon, the Dutchman's Trail, and overlooks Miner's Needle. The hour-long short hike is an informal nature study and history lesson of the area. Throughout the day, the amphitheater is filled with the vibrant music of the Southwest, with the colorful swirling skirts of the younger dancers of the Strumming Amigos. distinctive costumes of the youthful dancers and musicians of the Ballet Folklorico Guadalupanos from Guaymas, Mexico, are always crowd pleasers. While walking through camp, one can quickly get a vulture's eye view of the surroundings. Mountain men of the Powderhorn clan present a vivid demonstration of living conditions in the Old West. The search for the gold includes using the prospector's gold panning techniques, how to sift through the grains of things you do not want in the hope of finding a glimmer of the golden nuggets you do want. Nuggets the size of small pebbles to nuggets the size of a fist. The branding iron was used in the Old West to identify the owners of different cattle. At Trek, the Dons will brand a personal souvenir for you to take home. The price of a Trek ticket not only includes lunch and dinner, but all the coffee and donuts you can eat and all the cold pop you can drink. The irresistible aroma of fresh-baked bread lures guests to the outdoor ovens to learn how the bread is made and to savor the fresh-from-the-oven product. The sweetness and lightness of Indian-style popovers are generously prepared by the Doñas and devoured with sticky-fingered delight. The sandwiches for lunch and the special barbecue dinner are planned long before Trek begins.
Trek Day is like a zoo out here. There's a lot of people, a lot of guests, and it takes a lot of work. We start preparing for Trek on Saturday morning. We start making the sandwiches about 10 o'clock in the morning, and that preparation will last till about 2:30 p.m., making up the sack lunches for the long hikers and the participants in base camp itself. As soon as we finish with lunch, we start preparing for dinner. And dinner is what really takes a lot of time. We make up 500 gallons of beans. We order 1,050 to 1,100 pounds of sirloin and slice it or grind it depending on what we're going to do with it that particular trek. Start cooking usually about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, preparing for a 5 o'clock feeding at dinner time. Dinner line usually starts at about 5 o'clock, and by 6:15 we are completely done. got us a hog, and I'm going to have it on a spit, rotating and cooking all day long. And it's for the after-trek party for the Dons and the Donias and the people that put so much into Trek for Trek Day. It'll be the most photographed thing in base camp on Trek Day.
The full barbecue dinner is far more enjoyable and relaxing when accompanied by strolling mariachis. The president of the Dons and the president of the Donias oversee all the activities of Trek Day and watch as the hundreds of guests are leisurely and efficiently served in the dinner line. The president is wearing the official and weighty symbol of office, the Don's sombrero. As evening nears, the activities once again shift to the amphitheater for more Western entertainment and stories of the Mogollon Monster by Arizona's official balladeer and honorary Don, Dolan Ellis. The Don's production of the legend of Superstition's gold is played out against the backdrop of the mountain itself. The play tells how the Peralta brothers of Mexico found the gold, of the village celebration in honor of their rich discovery. The party of 100 men the brothers enlisted to mine the almost pure veins of gold in the Blacktop Mountain to the north, and their fate at the hands of the Apaches, a fate sealed in blood. The Apaches attacked the sleeping miners at dawn, and all but Ramon Peralta perished in the massacre. Ramon never returned for the gold and spent his last years peacefully and quietly in the local cantina. The appearance of the Dutchman and of those who followed him and were never seen again.
To the go! El Oro!
As the old Dutchman died, the secret of the mine's location died with him.
Do you hear me? No one ever knew. Jacob? Jacob!
From the darkness of the amphitheater, all eyes turn upward to see the flaming lights of the Don sombrero being mysteriously branded onto the face of the Superstition, followed by the spectacular fireworks show. And the culmination of the day's events, almost 3,000 pounds of flaming charcoal cascading over the edge of the mountain. As you leave base camp, remember, the ghost of the Dutchman stands as a silent sentinel over these mountains, watching, waiting, asking you to follow him as he disappears into the mist of the mountain, beckoning you to return to the Don's Club Superstition Trek and the search for the Dutchman's gold.